Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the September 7th, 2021 City Council meeting.
Iris Day Carvalho.
Here.
Davine.
Here.
Solder.
Here.
Badwell.
Here.
Garza.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, our prayer is Kevin Guthrie, Across Road Christian Church. Kevin?
And my reading this morning was Psalm 95, and I want to just use it as part of a prayer to begin with. Father, let us come before you and worship you. Father, we pray that we come into your presence with thanksgiving. You are Lord of all. You are great. You are King above all kings. In your hands are the depths of the earth, the height of the mountains. The sea is yours and all the land you have formed. Come, let us bow before you in worship. And let us kneel before you today. And Lord, we thank you for our city council. We thank you for our city. Father, we pray for your wisdom and your guidance over our leaders today. We pray that there will be unity. We pray that we will see one another through your eyes. That we will see one another as people made in your image. Though we may have differing opinions, differing beliefs, Lord, we pray that as we come together, it will be for the greater good of this community. Father, we thank you for all the opportunities that we have in this city and in this community. And God, we just pray your blessing upon us. God, we pray for our businesses. We pray that they will be able to fill all the openings to keep their doors open, to continue to be able to serve their customers. And Father, so that there's also the benefit to the city of revenue. That we will continue to be able to provide the services that we are able to provide. God, we pray that we will provide for those who don't have. Pray that you will work through the churches of this community and through the resources of this city to take care of those who are in need. Father, we pray for our hospital. We pray that they'll have plenty of staff to take care of those who are sick, those who are injured. God, may you take care of each one. And we thank you for all of the hard work of our doctors and our nurses. We thank you for our first responders. We thank you for our police department and Chief Hooper. We thank you for our fire department and Chief Beard. We thank you for all of our first responders, the EMTs, and all those who provide for our safety in this community. Lord, we lift up our schools and just pray safety over our children and over our teachers and administrators. God, we have a wonderful community, and we give you thanks for that. And today, as we meet, we just pray that you will be glorified in all things. And Lord, as the fair is coming, we pray for your protection over each one who's there, each one who's working there, over all those who are putting it together. Lord, we pray that it will be a good and safe and family-friendly event. Lord, again, we just pray that you'll be glorified and honored in all that is said and all that is done here today. Thank you for those who are serving. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Item 4A is the National Hispanic Heritage Month Proclamation.
All those that we asked to come. Today I've asked a lot of citizens who made it makes a difference in our community that are Latinos to come forward today. And I made them their own proclamation right here. So they will receive and tell them that for me as Mayor Steve Garza, I am thankful that they're there in our community. And they work together and do a good job every day. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and I'm going to have Dave come up here. Centennial, yeah, okay? Whereas Hispanic Heritage Observance began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under the President Lyndon Johnson and was expanded to the Hispanic Heritage Month by President Ronald Reagan in 1988. And whereas the theme of the 2021 National Hispanic Heritage Month celebrated from September 15th to October 15th, Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope, which invites us to celebrate Hispanic heritage by reflecting on all contributions Hispanics have made in the past and will continue to make in the future. Whereas Kansas agencies are becoming more culturally and sensitive and more accessible in creating materials that better meet the needs of the Latino and Hispanic community, including offering materials in Spanish, and where the Hispanic Latinos have participated in growth and development of our state and our country through their labor, and that continues to this day. And whereas Hispanic population is estimated at 15%, while the national population of Hispanic estimated at 52 million people, represents over 17% of the total population, recognized as the largest ethnic minority in the nation, and where Hispanics have made a profound and positive influence on our country due to their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. And they have enhanced the shape of our national character, which continues an old tradition that reflects the multiple customs of their countries. Therefore, I, Steve Garza, Mayor of Hutchinson, Kansas, do by proclaim September 15, 2021, to October 15, 2021 as National Hispanic Heritage Month. The city of Hudson encourages all citizens to join this observance. And I'm very proud of them, okay? Dave?
So I asked the mayor if we could have a fiesta today, but he said you guys had a lot of business to do. So you just get a few words from me. The mission of the Human Relations Officer is to create harmonious relationships amongst the various groups within the city of Hutchinson. And one way we do that is by recognizing and highlighting the diverse groups within our community. I love this part of my job, but today is a little personal for me. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm Hispanic too. And today we take a small step in recognizing this group of people from our community. 30% of our neighbors in Hutchinson identified as Hispanic or Latinos, just 1% above the Kansas Hispanic population. These folks behind me are educators, our healthcare workers, our drivers, our business owners, our students. There are building officials, there are mayors, there are police officers. They start business, they build roads, they innovate ideas. They're Hutchinsonians, they're Kansans, and they're Americans. They have healed our community, they have taught our community, they have built our community, they are our community. So the next time you eat a pupusa or a taco, you drink a paloma or a margarita, or you listen to a reggaeton song on the radio, I invite you to reflect on the contributions, struggles, and successes of Hispanic Americans, whether they grew up in Guatemala, Puerto Rico, or Mexico. They now call Hutchinson home, and they are our neighbors. And to the little girls sitting in some classroom somewhere in the city, or the old abuela drinking coffee in the kitchen of their home this morning, this is your home. You belong here. You matter. Keep dreaming. We're so proud to have you here. We'll let some of the folks behind me say a few words.
Before we do that, I want to make one more thing. You have to remember that as the mayor of this town, I reflected on this day today, and I said, first thing, Hispanics were God's children. Second thing, we're Hispanic Latinos that we are proud of. Third thing, we're Americans. Next thing, we're Hutchonians. So always remember that we're part of the community. So I'm going to say their name, and they come up, and please, if you want to say something, please say something, please. And tell us where you work and what you do if you would, okay? First thing I'm very, very proud of. This lady was on the city commission before, and it's hard for me to take her footsteps. She was also a mayor. Please, Francis Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor, for this proclamation. I didn't expect to get my own copy, so I'm very proud to receive this today. And I want you to know that it's unusual to be on this side of the podium. Usually I'm the one that was presenting proclamation as mayors. But it was indeed an honor for me to have served this community as mayor and a city commissioner. And as of now, I am volunteering still. I have not stopped. So thank you, council members, for your work that you do in this community as well.
Thank you, Francis.
And now if I could pronounce Estimada Tavar Mora.
Thank you so much. I think it's funny to note that through marriage we are related. Wouldn't have known that he's only 3 or 4 houses down from my in-laws. But this proclamation, it's so important, not only for our community, but also for our Latinx community, our Hispanic community that usually is hidden in the shadows, and little by little their work is being shown and appreciated. I am a healthcare worker. I work as a medication aide at a local nursing home. I'm also a case manager at Horizons, and I am the resource strategist and treasurer for Hutch and Harmony. So thank you so much for this recognition. It really means everything.
Miss Cindy Flores, we all know her.
Thank you. I am officially retired, but I continue to work. I want to thank you on behalf of the Hispanic community thanks to everybody, okay?
Elma Henry? You're welcome.
I am not retired. I'm far from there, actually. My name is Alma Henry. I am the principal at Hutchinson Step Magnet School here in town. And I would also like to thank you guys for the proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month. I talk a little bit to Dave about our stories and how we actually are from the same city, Camargo, Chihuahua. And it's not necessarily a special story. And the reason I say it's not necessarily special, it's because I don't want to devalue it, but at the same time, there are so many stories out there right now within our kids in elementary school where I'm at, kids in middle school, up and coming in high school. And it's important for these types of proclamations and these types of recognitions because it's about support. And that's how we're able to get the kids through and how we're able to see big dreams come to fruition. So thank you so much for this proclamation. It does absolutely mean the world.
This man I know very personally, very good friend of mine, Oscar Garcia.
Good morning, guys. I'm going to lift this up a little bit. First of all, I want to thank everybody in here for this proclamation. I want to take a minute to also invite everybody in here, city council included, all city staff. We're going to have a fiesta, Southwest Bricktown Fiesta at Southwest Bricktown Park on September 25th from 6 to 11. We'll have all kinds of stuff from food trucks to inflatables for the kids, a mechanical bull, live music from several different local bands with local roots and all that good stuff. So again, I want to thank you all. Keep it short and sweet.
He's taller than me. This proclamation is, we all know him. He's our great head of inspection, Mr. Izzy Rivera.
Well, my Spanish name is Ismael Rivera. My parents are both from Puerto Rico, so it's a pleasure to be here. I always like to help out all the Hispanics, but not just the Hispanics, all citizens of this city. They're all equal in my eyes, and that's how I see everyone. But it's always good to be recognized for where you come from, whoever it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I announce this last one, I want to make sure that we have some other people that I want to make sure that we know that I wouldn't be up here as mayor without them. Mr. Jim Martinez, through the Jim Martinez Trail, he served on the council for many, many years. I want to make sure he get recognized. And also Dave Razzo, he also served on this committee as a city commissioner. And Cecilia Mora, we served on the school board, I believe. And so I want to make sure her name gets out there. With all these people, I wouldn't be here today getting the courage to step up and be a mayor. Last but not least, Mr. Dave Santardo. Come here, Dave. We can't do it without him, Dave. All right, Dave. Thank you so much. Okay.
Item 5A, oral communications from the audience.
Please state my name and where I live. Mitch Gumbel. I live at 1506 Linwood Drive, Hutchinson, Kansas. I want to approach real quick. I want to hand some pictures out to everybody. I want some of this on the screens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Now, I've had a lot of problems in the past with the with the city coming after me on properties. And it still exists today, even though the culture is changing some. But I did go back to court on August 27th. And while I was in court, I was sentenced to 2 weeks in jail on a couple of windows in my building at 300 East 2nd. So now we know so these pictures are going to be pictures that are in Southwest Hutchinson around my building. And I'd just like to go through them real quick with you. I think that first one there, I think it's a city-owned property at the very top. And every window's blown out of it. And then about a block away from me, that 400 East 2nd, you can't see very well on some of these pictures, you know. Then the hardware store there on Plum and 2nd, the whole side, the whole front, they're all gone. On the second sheet, I think this is just right around Avenue A. Windows missing. I think right here on Washington Street on the bottom, I think that building is being renovated now. I think it's been sold and somebody's trying to make a hotel out of it. Not sure. There's the old Abstract and Title Company. It has broken windows right on Main Street. Another downtown one. The Landmark, I don't think there's a window in it. I don't think there's one that even exists. When I was there, birds were flying in and out. Then, of course, down on Main Street, the very last picture, we know what building that is. And I know it's being renovated, but still, it's not done. I don't think that my crime was buying property in Hutchinson, Kansas. I mean, I can't believe I'm sentenced to 2 weeks in jail. There's still some other work that has to be done on a garage, because 4 days after I purchased the property, John Vetter was on the property. I've already got the house completed, got windows in it, roof on it, it's all painted, looks good. Yard's completely cleaned up. But the garage, I couldn't get the garage finished because during the pandemic, the prices for a 2x6 went to $15. Plywood was $72 a sheet, which was normally $18 to $20 a sheet. It's just now in the last month coming down to where I can afford to fix this. But 45 days doesn't get it. And will I go to jail? I mean, if I got to prove a point, I will go. What I'm asking this council to do is to take these out of court, at least the one for the windows. 'Cause I've got 15 buildings, and I'm not even down on Monroe Street by the old St. Elizabeth's. I'm not at the Muir House, but they all have broken windows all the way around. I don't know why I need to be held to a different standard from the rest of this city.
I would have to say that he has been held to a different standard. I know that we have rectified some of it because now we have new people in that department, but all of these tickets stem from prior to the current people in the department. I would like to see if there's anything that we can do, because I feel that the issue with previous staff kind of stems some of these issues that he's still having to deal with. I think it's unfair. And I would like to see it removed from court. I know that the city as a petitioner can do it, even though we really don't normally practice something like that. But I think with the city, maybe with the city council, I mean, what could we do?
You have no jurisdiction over the municipal court, council.
But what is
None.
the city as the petitioner?
You still don't have any jurisdiction over the municipal court.
But what part of staff does?
The judge has the jurisdiction, and any appeals go to the district court.
But the city is the who puts it in the court as an officer of the city? Does the city, like, who is the petitioner? Because the judge can't be the petitioner. Otherwise, that'd be one-sided.
Obviously, we have a city prosecutor, and that's who brings the cases.
Okay,
But they're not decided by this body.
I know, but what can be done by the city?
Well, you can't, and that's the point. And you're not supposed to be.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do, Sarah.
Yeah.
I think. People shouldn't be going to jail over windows.
Yeah.
I know we've had this conversation before. I was assured nobody was ever going to jail over a property violation. Everybody knows how strongly I feel about maintaining our properties. That aside, nobody should ever be going to jail. And we have the ability, don't we have the ability to change the policy surrounding sending people to jail for a property violation? I mean, I think you bring up a good point, Mitch, especially on the Landmark building. We got an absentee owner versus somebody who's in this community investing in properties, whether they're to our timeline or not. And we've done nothing to that.
If you just go by and look at my building at 300 East 2nd, I got a couple of storm windows that are broke. I could get them fixed real quick. But this to me is about, it's just about being treated like everybody else in town. And I haven't been treated like everybody else for the last 3 years.
How much money have you spent
From
the violations?
Last year, probably $37,000. And we're talking about stuff that should never even been touched. When John Better first approached me years ago, he said, "You will do everything I say or I'll make your life miserable." And from that moment on, we had a bad relationship. Because I told him, "You're not talking to me like this, I'm gonna get you fired." Took years.
Well,
But I've probably got, but I've
he's
got
not.
I've got all these citations in between, and I brought them to the council many times. And every time I talked to you, I'd get 3 more. As a matter of fact, the 3 we're talking about right now were the last 3 things on his desk. And they went from his desk to the judge in 6 days. That is not right. That is not right. I showed progress every weekend. I haven't had a day off in years. Years. I work every weekend. But I also work a store. I also have deliveries to do. I don't have the manpower because nobody wants to work anymore in this town. So I got to do it all. Work till 10 o'clock at night. I don't work on Saturdays now at the store so I could get more done on the rentals. But my rental houses are nice. I could take all 5 of you there and look at them. But nobody will take me up. I'll bring you inside. I hold myself to a high standard. I would not rent a home that I wouldn't stay in myself. And a lot of money has been put in every property.
Well, I think the council can probably uphold our mission to improve housing without some of these more draconian measures. I don't know the backstory. I'm sure there's a backstory on how long this has been. But is there anything we can do now, Paul? Like, I know we can change the rules, but that's not going to affect the fact that he's been sentenced. Do we have any recourse from this body? Would that be something you would speak with the prosecutor about? I mean, people drop charges all the time, am I right?
Couldn't we give a recommendation to this? We could at least write a recommendation to the city.
I don't know how many times I have to say that we don't hear the municipal court cases with the city council. You're
Well,
not the
Paul,
municipal
2 years
court,
ago,
and
Paul,
you
I
don't
came
hear
in-
the- excuse me. You're not the municipal court, and you don't hear the evidence. What you have is an end run by Mr. Gumbel to the council, when he ought to be telling it to the judge, and if he doesn't like
The
that,
judge
he
won't
can
let me
appeal it
talk.
to the district court.
The judge won't let me talk in there. He won't even let me open my mouth.
I actually have another person that was in the court that wanted to present evidence to the court. I think you remember that case off of B Street, because he had actually gotten work done, but the city staff only took pictures of the front of the building. He had pictures of all 4 sides of the building and wanted to show the judge the evidence. The judge refused to let him speak or see the evidence, and contrary to the city staff.
Paul, I appreciate you clarifying that we're the legislative body, not the judicial body, and we don't have any right to muddy that situation. But I think we need to take a hard look at some of these rules that are resulting in sentences
Yeah.
like that. maybe under our purview. I don't know if the council
Yeah, it
agrees
would-
with that.
Decriminalizing property code violations.
Well, that's all fine, guys. Problem is, we have his problem in front of us right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to jail, I don't know who's gonna take care of her. I don't. But sometimes you gotta take a stand. And you gotta tell yourself, I wanna be treated fairly like every other person in this city. What was Vetter even doing on my commercial property? He wasn't supposed to even be inspecting that. He was a rental registration and licensing man. I mean, how does a house that I have turn into an illegal storage unit? Please. It has a new roof, has new windows, has new siding. They had to find something. So it's an illegal storage unit because we sold our lake house when she was in the hospital and I put my stuff in there. I mean, I could tell you 50 stories. And I've been here, I don't know, how many times have I been here? 15, 20?
Quite a bit.
I mean, I was in the court. I was there on a notice of hearing. He put me on trial that day. John committed perjury on the stand and nothing happened. Mike Robinson assaulted me and nothing happened. That's why I took that case to the Supreme Court of Kansas. I'm sorry, but I am up to here with being treated differently.
What would you like for us to do?
Well, if there's nothing you can do, then there's nothing you can do. I guess I just try and appeal.
I mean, you understand.
I went to Paul 2 years ago. We sat down for an hour and a half. We wrote everything on paper. You did nothing for me. Not one thing. Not one thing.
And that's not the truth, Mitch. No, it isn't.
Okay, all right.
I gave you plenty of extensions, and you didn't complete any of them.
Everything's completed.
Well, maybe now. Certainly not
They
within
always
the time
were.
frame that we had.
They always were. I worked and worked and worked.
Mitch, we know you're a hard worker, and this probably isn't the best avenue to like hash out.
But where do we do it? Where do we do it?
Well, Mitch, I think what you're hearing from us is that we're sympathetic, and we need to make changes. And this is really good that you brought this. I think you probably are in a position to appeal that last case, and I think staff needs direction from this body that we need to work with people, which is I think what they've been doing, instead of trying to get gotchas.
Right.
And
I do believe things are better.
yes,
Things are better. They're better than they were. They are.
well, good.
I think we're heading in the right direction.
I got a question. Were you on staff? This has to be sent to the court at some time, right? I mean, we decide when it goes to court, correct? So how long ago was this sent to court for him? Do you remember that?
I know it's been a while.
Oh, you weren't on staff when it did it, so it wasn't recently we sent it to court, right?
I'm assuming this is an ongoing case.
Okay.
It's an ongoing case.
Is it an ongoing case? Was it an ongoing?
Yeah, the 715 East Sherman,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mitch,
A Hutchinson inspector lived right across the street from that house and watched it deteriorate for 45 years. I bought it to fix it and clean it up. And in 4 days, I was over there. They were over there. And you had an inspector live across the street and this high from the back of the house to the alley, 65 tires, dead animals, metal. Everybody knew it was there.
How many loads of trash did you take out of that?
About 20 dump trucks full out of the garage and the house and the yard.
20 dump
And I got
trucks.
a big dump truck.
So he bought a house that sat for years. As a
No, it
city-
wasn't sitting. There's people living in it
When you bought it?
well,
How long was the
shouldn't have
trash
been.
sitting there?
years and years. It was there for 18 years that the inspector lived across the street because I was told that he had a dumpster put up there every year and they wouldn't
Yeah.
do anything.
And I'm glad that he took 20 loads of trash to the dump. And I'm sorry that you got punished for doing that.
But go by and look at the home now. New windows, new roof, new paint. But I work just the weekends. I don't have all day, every day.
well,
But now the garage in the back is deteriorating. I'm going to rebuild it. Before winter, it'll be done.
but as you know, the inspector that was giving you trouble's no longer here. We took,
I-
we
that's
dealt with that,
correct.
you know.
That's
when-
correct.
And we're-
So if the city inspector, like Izzy, brings something to court, once that happens, Izzy doesn't have the ability to pull it back as a
Staff can make a
petitioner?
recommendation to the court based on findings, but really, it does fall within the court's purview to deal with that. Jade, I agree with you completely. The appeals process is by design for the last 100 years anyway, the mechanism we use in Kansas to deal with these situations instead of holding trial in this particular setting.
Well,
I
no-
do understand there's some sensitivity to this issue, and we were dealing with some things internally within the organization. So this does predate a lot of the faces you see on city staff today, but a lot of that decision-making related to whether or not these were valid cases to start with. And I think the court probably, in fact, I know they did, they reviewed that to see if they were actionable offenses to start with. And while I think it's true, we probably haven't taken anybody to court on Landmark, not in the time that I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason for that? Well, if they don't act, we probably get to spend $300,000 tearing it down for them. So it's a budget issue in some cases. It's not really a selective or malicious enforcement issue. Nevertheless, I understand the concerns, but there is a process for that, and I would encourage them to go through the appeals process. If we find at the end of the day or a period of years that we have an excessive number of appeals being reversing decisions at the low court, we know we've got an intrinsic issue. We probably ought to look at that. I'll tell you that hasn't been the case so far in my experience, but again, I haven't reviewed this particular case. I saw the Gumbles coming in the door this morning, had a very nice exchange. I was unaware of the concern that they have right now. So before we do anything in a significant way, I would encourage you all to maybe, like I'm going to do a little homework to sort the facts and to get some of the history on it. So that's all I know. Thank you.
No, but if we discover something in their favor, we can't do nothing about it still. You can't go to court and really, right? If you go there and you find out that something he's been done wrong, you can't reverse it still, right?
So what you're likely dealing with is if something is corrected to the satisfaction of the court, I know that a lot of times the court will do things like perhaps a dismissal or some sort of adjudication, hold a ruling in abeyance for a period of time. They have that authority. In this particular case, I'll just tell you, sitting here, I'd be very surprised if any defendant went into the court system after having everything completed to the satisfaction of the court to find that the court is threatening 2 weeks potential jail to somebody that has already satisfied all the outstanding matters. I don't know of this particular case, so I'm not casting judgment there, but that's not how courts work typically. If something's taken care of, most judges have a tendency to clear the docket and get on down the road. So,
And he will.
okay.
I have till October 22nd.
Okay, so there you go, Mayor. That's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Do you feel confident that you'll be able to meet that deadline, or do you need help?
Well, I'm just upset about it.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I am upset about it.
I get it.
I just get, there's 10 or 15 buildings right around me that some
Yeah.
of them have no windows.
Yeah.
And if you drove by mine, you wouldn't even notice a crack in a storm window. It's nitpicking.
Well, I think you have confirmation that you're not going to be unfairly targeted in the future.
True.
So I think we're trying to remedy the animosity that has been shown between the city and you, if you feel that that was,
Yes.
you know, an issue, unfair issue.
Well, I was hoping for something better, but I guess it can't happen. It can't happen.
Better in as far as us helping you with the court system, is that what you mean?
Yeah, on the windows.
Yeah.
When we make it a policy to fix every window in town, then write me up. You know, but
Yes.
when I'm the only one, and I showed many on Main Street.
Yes, you have.
I'm on 300 East Second over there.
Izzy, who go, do we have that officer, that inspector, the young lady, she's the one that would catch that stuff like that, right? So does she go out every week, or how does she go? How's her, how's the schedule with, how do you do that? Do you just roam the streets for that, Izzy? Yeah.
When I came in as the new building official and director of the department, one of the changes I made was that I would like to, at this point, just concentrate on what I categorize as explosions. I mean, it's got to be really, really bad for us to get involved. We have not been following up on the minor complaints that we've been getting. We have been addressing them, but we have not been constantly following up, to avoid situations like this. But we do have them on our radar, and we do follow them to the letter of the law. But we're not as strict on those as we are on the ones that really need to be addressed, which is what we're trying to do. And in that way, we could try and work with the citizens versus against them. However, just keep in mind that when the project is in court for a while, the judge may, and it doesn't see much progress according to him. I'm not sure what the issue is as well. And he gives the person a deadline. He expects that deadline to be met. And if it's not, then of course they're in violation of the order of the courts. But that's up to the courts to decide what they want to do. All I want to do is keep on enforcing our local laws, but I'm concentrating more on the heavily damaged or sightly properties.
Like safety issues.
Safety issues, yes, especially health. Because when you have a lot of properties with a lot of junk in it, then you have rodents, famine, smells. That not only affects the property owner, but it also affects the neighbors.
Yeah.
Once it gets to that point, then we need to address those, because now it's affecting others, not just the occupants. And at that point, we need to take address. But due to limited funds on budget, I have to keep in mind what projects I'm going to go after and which ones I'm not. And order of this body is that for us to work with the citizens to the best of our ability, and we've been trying to do that.
Yes. I think that you're doing great.
Thank you.
Mayor, it's a delicate job because we didn't put it in last week's staff report, but in the next one, because we got it late, you'll receive a written correspondence where someone actually signed their name and put their home address on it, making complaints in general about the lack of enforcement of the citywide, and the fact that we've got derelict properties that we aren't addressing. So for as much fervor as there might be on one end of the spectrum, as evidenced in this discussion this morning, we have almost an equal amount of concern on the other end of the spectrum, and somewhere in the middle, we all balance this.
Well, I think the problem we have here is we're not enforcing derelict properties while making the Gumballs go to court. They got sent to court on, I know this is the last one, but they actually had several cases in court at the same time. And you, as a one person, you can only do so much. I guess the big issue we have here is, we have derelict properties and we taken care of. The point is we're ignoring that and enforcing somebody who has okay properties to do everything.
Here's where I'm fearful, counsel.
Yeah.
I could dispel that thought, and I could evidence to you all that we have other cases where we're loading the system appropriately with actionable cases. But what I don't want to do is mention them publicly to start a process at this door where they come in and try to subvert the process without understanding how the courts work.
Yeah.
What you'd want to do is probably understand the caseload in the prior cases so that you would be able to weigh whether or not that's a true statement as to whether or not we're taking action in similar fashion to this defendant. And I think what we would find, and what I found initially, is that yes, there are some that we are, and most of those are even complaint-driven. I like a complaint-driven process because it gets us out of this mess. We can then show someone and demonstrate that a neighbor who has a meaningful investment and concern right next door has a stand in making the complaint. But that doesn't always solve the issues either when you have 4-foot tall ragweed on Main Street on a construction site that has to be corrected too, because sometimes you just don't have a complainant, but you have something that needs to be taken care of. Doesn't solve a thing, does it?
No.
I'm sorry.
No easy
Yeah.
answer.
It's the delicate balance.
Well, Mr. Gumbel, the only thing I can tell you is this. I hear your point, and that's one of the reasons why I got elected, to make sure everybody gets fair. Today, we're sitting here saying that there's nothing, and our attorney says there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry that this all happened to you, but we have a new set of inspectors now. We have a new set of staff now. So we will sit up here and make sure that we do the best we can with the inspectors that we have. And if you feel like you're getting, again, let us know about it, let me know about it, and we'll take a look at it. But I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry that this happened with our old inspectors. And we, me especially, came in to get this stopped. So we're going to do the best. I know our council here sits up here and want to do the best we can for our citizens. That's why we're here. We want to hear your complaints. I don't want you moving out of Hutch. You spend a lot of money here, and as okay. Well, okay, we don't want you to leave. So anyway, I'm glad you came today. So all we can do is, me as the mayor, to say that you will get treated right, and we will make sure you get treated right and fairly. That's all I can do as a mayor. That's all I can do, saying as a council member. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get elected, because we weren't getting treated fair. So that's all I can say to you. I hope that helps you a little bit, just to make sure I understand that the sentence. I know I wouldn't want to go to jail, but the only thing we can do is that we've heard your comments. We appreciate you coming in. We want you to come in and talk to us, okay? If something's not being done, let us know about it. And let us know about it in the beginning, when it's coming in the beginning. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. If it's,
I was here even before you were.
I know you were. I know you were. I know you were. Yes, sir. I know. I can say that. I know. So the only thing we can do at this point right now is to tell you that it's going to be better. That's all we can do.
I just hope when you're hiring people now, because it is a public.
Yes.
That you're getting people that can be honest.
Yes.
And even if I come at them and I'm a little upset.
Yes.
Because I feel like I'm a great landlord.
Yes.
That they can handle that.
Yes.
And not take it the wrong way, and then all of a sudden they start bullying me because they got a little bit of authority.
Right. I got you.
You know.
I got you.
That's wrong.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, I hear you, because I know I do. I get calls every day. It's probably every night I get calls, not every night, every other night, but I get a lot of calls from people that are mad about this person's property, so on. There's a lot of it going on. So all I can do is hopefully we can just work with you and get better. That's all I can say. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, at this point, is there anybody else who wants to speak?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't have the ability, but I'm kind of loud.
Yes, okay.
Okay. First of all, I had stuff written down that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I feel like there is a problem with the culture that we have within this community from the city. I think the attitude is off-putting. I think that we have a lot of people that would describe this city as being antagonistic towards the citizens. And I think we have a direct, perfect example of that today with Mr. Brown. I think that the way that he talks to you, the council, the way that he speaks to the citizens is absolutely inappropriate, and it's hostile. This is the kind of attitude that this community is tired of. I've been running for the Northwest District for City Council, and I have talked to a lot of people in our community, and people are tired of this. They want a change. They want to be treated like we were treated 25 years ago when I came into this community, with respect. You weren't criminalized. You weren't treated as if you were inferior. You weren't treated as if they are doing you a service. You guys serve us. You're supposed to be there for us and not treat us this way. And I'm not just talking about my husband and myself, but everybody within this community. It isn't right. It isn't fair. The culture has to change, because this kind of attitude is unacceptable coming from our city. And that's all I have to say. And I'm sorry that I might be a little bit emotional about this, but I've had it up to here. And I think a lot of people in this community have too. And this outburst is absolutely unacceptable. And I hope that you guys remember who is the boss of who in this town, because this is not right. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to my husband. And it will be a very bad situation if he does go. Because not only will it affect just him not being able to run the store, I can't get into our store to run our store because we have stairs. So if we have to shut our store down, that means lost sales, which means lost income. My dogs get walked by my husband because we took down a fence when we moved into our house. My dogs can't go outside unleashed. There's no way. One of them would never even come back. You'd think we're mean to him, but we're not. He's just wild. I mean, it affects everything. Even my ability to take showers in the morning. Everything would be affected. And this kind of attitude, this kind of treatment is just so unacceptable. And I just hope and pray that everything does get better. I hope that we do continue to make good changes like we have made with the inspection department. But this is absolutely unacceptable. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, is there anybody else? Thank you.
My name's Don Byler, and I've been here before, people know, and it's been over a year since the issue of pickleball was brought up to the attention of the council and the lack of places to play. So I thought it's certainly time this topic should be brought up again to review and discuss and update on any progress that has been made to date. As one of the many pickleball players in Hutchinson, I would like to thank all those who are helping expand the sport. Several places have stepped up to help improve the sport in the area, and I thought we should recognize them for doing so. I would like to recognize the Journey Church north of Yoder for going all out to refinish their activity center so 3 new courts could be created and painted. The project took them approximately 2 months to do. Their act on their part provided a place for players to use that wasn't 40 miles away and made their climate-controlled indoor facility multiple functional and available to more people. We know this was not a small investment on their part, and they didn't ask anyone to help with the expenses. They did so their members and others could enjoy the sport of pickleball. They opened it for play for 4 evenings a week and the weekends, since they knew the majority of their participants held down employment, and that would be the times most convenient to them. They've even gone so far as to have small tournaments for the players, provided sponsored and barbecued for the participants. This made us certainly feel more than welcome and wanted and made a great time for all. I would also like to thank the City of Haven, specifically Mike Valdez and Mark Robinson, for utilizing old tennis courts to construct 2 new public courts for pickleball. Since several players are in the Haven area, they decided it was in their interest to try something so they could have an area to use. Even though the city is small, it was decided by the council something had to be done. The court is used several times a week and will probably only continue to gain players now that it's there. I would like to thank the Hutch Rec for their effort to get something going here. They tried to use Memorial Hall for a couple of courts, which might have been a good idea if they checked it out or checked with someone to see if they could be used. When we tried it, it proved not to be very useful. The floor was very slick, and we thought someone could be easily injured. The lighting might have worked the theater, but it was very dim to see a pickleball flying at 50 miles an hour. The sports arena had some courts put in, and they are being used by a few players, I believe. I'm glad they can, but with the hours being 9 to 11, Monday through Friday, it only made it useful to those who are retired or work some other times. Over 85% of our players are fully employed, and that left them out of the use of the arena. This might have been a problem. This might be part of the problem getting somewhere to play. Everyone thinks that only the retired people play pickleball. The idea of refurbishing the tennis courts at Rice Park was a good idea, and we were all in that. As a group, we raised $3,500 to help with the construction, which we did in about 30 days, and we were excited when we were told it would be completed by spring. This high priority project deadline changed to summer, then fall. However, that dream now is on hold, since it's unlikely that it will not be finished before next year, with the concrete needing to be placed, cured for 28 days, surfacing with a minimum temperature requirement, painting, lines, lights, windscreens, and more. It seems like the project turned out to be more than what the Parks Department will admit that it's capable of doing. We have been in contact with the department, members of this council, about the progress, and the answer has always been the same. It's a high priority project for us, and we plan to be there next week. But unfortunately, nothing has progressed since late June, and very little was accomplished before then. There are weeds growing up in it now. What everyone was wondering, why can't lines be painted on the underutilized fairground courts to make 4 pickleball courts on 2 courts that anyone with nets can use, and 2 courts with nets so anyone without nets can also play? There are several players using the existing nets now. That would be easier, less expensive, and could be done for the courts at Rice Park when completed, if they ever get completed. As we have stressed many times, there will be need now and in the future anyway, so why not do it now? Why not make this majority city-owned facility multifunctional like the Journey Church in Yoder did with their facility? Why is it up to one person to say if the public can have use of their property and how to use it? I am always questioned by players, tennis coaches, and others in the community why this hasn't been done by now, and my answer is always the same. I don't know. Number one, we're again pleading for you to explore this good use of the taxpayers' money. And number two, to give us a new, realistic, projected completion date of the 4-court complex at Rice Park, either by the park department or someone with the ability to construct the courts. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Justin, do you mind?
Good morning, Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. Don is absolutely right. This project has taken a whole life of its own as far as time to complete. We are still on track to complete this fall. We've ordered the LED lights. The windscreens have been ordered. The benches for the players are arriving this week. We've been working on multiple projects. If you're aware, we only have a crew of 5 people. So we've been trying very hard to get this project along with all the other ongoing maintenance and projects. But we still are on track to have the courts open this fall. As far as the bigger picture of pickleball, these 4 courts are just going to stir the activity to continue to grow. I'm working with an architect out of Manhattan who's working on some cost estimating and some conceptual drawings for a large either 10 or 12 court complex. It's in the CIP. I want to say it's 2024. I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head. But really trying to nail down to build a purposely built complex in the future, because this is a growing sport and it's going to continue to grow. But I do apologize to the pickleball players. This has taken much longer than we anticipated, but we still are on track for this fall.
Justin, can you respond to the question that Don raised regarding the fairgrounds courts as to is it feasible to put the pickleball court, paint those lines on those courts, and do we have the ability and we have the authority to do that?
We do.
We have the authority?
We do. We've in the past we decided not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, because of the potential conflict with tennis players that we've seen over the past, and it's more on the tennis player side of things, not on the pickleball players. Just wanted to be clear on that. But the other issue with that, the concern I always had was if you don't have a portable net, those lines don't do you a lot of good because there's not a net out there the way they set the courts up inside. Unless you use the tennis net, which is not the correct height. I think the tennis net's a little bit high. So we could revisit that. I still am not in favor of that option, trying to get these courts done at Rice Park and in the future building that full-blown complex.
I understand now.
Okay.
May I address Justin with a question?
Yeah, one moment, Don. I had one question about the lines that were the temporary tape that was on there last year. I was under the impression that caused the tournament to be moved.
It did.
And would we be at risk of that happening in the future, or was that a miscommunication?
So they used one type of tape that left the residue. We've done our best to try to get that off. There was some concerns when Keisha came out and looked that we weren't going to be able to clean that court well enough. So that was, I believe, one of the factors into canceling that event.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll address an issue. The tape situation was, yes, we put a tape down. It was supposedly to be removed with a low amount of heat. The tennis coach took it up on himself to pull the tape up, and when he did, he removed it improperly. It left a residue, yes. We didn't do it. The tennis coach did it. He's the one who removed it. He's the one that left the residue. It was nothing on our part. I believe in July, we had a meeting with the Parks Department, the school, and one other person, I can't remember who was there. But at that time, the Parks Department, Mr. Combs himself said, don't worry about the residue, we can remove it if any residue is left behind. That was the situation. Keisha never came and looked at the court. It was up to Mr. Armstrong, that's who was there. Mr. Armstrong took pictures of it, sent to Keisha and said, hey, what can we do? That was 2 weeks before the tournament, 2 weeks. This issue started in July. That's when the tape was removed. Why wasn't something done before then? Nobody did anything at all. It was removed improperly. My next address is Mr. Combs. How many days have been allotted to work on this project? There's concrete work. There's, I would say, approximately 1/5 of the concrete's been done. That's all. There are things to do. I don't know how many days he's allotted for this work, but a normal construction job, this is a 2 to 3 month job. Can he get 2 to 3 months out of the year to do it?
Well,
I don't think this is, I understand what Mr. Combs is saying, but realistically, it can't be done. He just needs to admit it can't not be done. If he wants to put 5 guys on this project for weeks at a time, fine, it might get done. Realistically, we'll be back in December looking at it again saying, it's not done. Thank you.
Is it time to contract this out?
I don't think we have it in the budget.
I know, but there's contingencies.
I don't believe so. I'll confer with my construction staff, but they keep assuring me we're still on track for this fall. I don't have I'll work on that on a detail outline. I can get that to the city manager as far as more of an actual construction schedule, as far as how much we can pour, when, and those sorts of things, when some of these other activities have to occur.
You have some gauge of the difference, whether the city would complete the project versus the cost of contracting this out as to...
So my early estimates on this project were a little over $20,000 that we did not have budgeted anywhere. We're taking those out of reserves. There was a little bit of fundraising, about $3,500 on the private side.
Right.
To contract this out, I think we'd have to at least double that early estimate because really our cost is just the material cost. The labor piece is really already paid for in the budget.
I know you're frustrated with it as well, and I appreciate that. I think we all appreciate that. But it may be time to bite the bullet and to look at the alternative of contracting it out.
I disagree.
Justin, when you say fall, are you thinking October?
November.
I would feel more comfortable sitting down with my construction crew and come up with a full schedule, and I can share that with the pickleball community, and the city manager can share that with everyone else.
We're having the biggest party when that court is done.
We are.
Because this pickleball issue has been...
I need to come up with a team. I'll play. Mr.
Don's cutting the ribbon.
I will get beat. It would be embarrassing for me.
Thank you.
Well, the question I have is, why can't we paint lines? Because the courts are going to be finished in a few years. Why can't we use them until then? Why can't something be done to help our city? There are so many players in this town. They drive 40 miles to play. They go out of town. Why can't we do some temporary work at the tennis courts, utilize what we have temporarily until Mr. Combs can get something completed, which he's talking 4 years from now? Maybe have a big complex. We have people that walk up and want to use the tennis court all the time to play.
Don, I was under the impression, I get emails all the time from the Hutch Rec about the sports arena courts. Do you not use those, or you don't want those?
What time do you get off work?
9 to 11.
I get off at 5.
The court's open 7 to 9 in the
Yeah, well, maybe we could look at that as well.
We've tried. We've talked to the sports arena, we have talked to the rec commission, we have talked to Justin, we have talked to several people. We get nowhere. All we get is the same response, next week. His foreman, I talked to his construction foreman, and he said, next week. That was August 1st.
I don't mean to be pessimistic or be the pessimistic one, but, as a city body, I'm just going to say, we can't be everything to everybody.
How much money are you spending on the canoes?
And what I'm saying is we are offering you and saying we're doing it. We're not up here saying we're not doing it at all. We're working on it.
Nothing Nothing has been done.
And you should be at least grateful that we're working on it.
Nothing has been done. How can we be
You know,
grateful? How can we be
because
grateful?
it will eventually get done. Every single city project takes forever.
Tell me about it. We know
When
it
you bring
takes
up the canoe, that's been going on years before you guys even started complaining, and it's still not complete.
You said this would be done in the spring.
But it is, we have bigger,
You're just getting frustrated because people.
I know you're getting frustrated, but our priorities are gonna be streets, roads,
That's fine.
projects, and we're gonna try to do something. You keep interrupting me. What I'm trying to say is, we're working on it. Cities, everything that has to do with the cities is slow, but at least be grateful that the city is committed to doing something. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's a small group of people compared to the population. Okay? And I hate to be the pessimistic one, and you can say everything you want to say about being growing and bigging, but then find a private investor if you want it rushed. If you don't want it rushed and paid for by taxpayer dollars, then you're going to have to wait.
Justin, do you think,
I'm sorry.
Do you think it would be possible to revisit with the tennis coaches again? I know we had a very long meeting with them. What are the odds? 40, 60, 25, 75?
I don't know what the odds would be. I mean, we can definitely have that conversation with Armstrong again and see what his thoughts are. I mean, he was open to the idea last time.
Do you mind reaching out to him just one more time and seeing if we can get some lines painted in the next couple weeks?
Yep.
I really appreciate that.
What's the reason why we can't? I haven't figured out why we can't paint lines.
Because of Keisha, it's
No, Keisha accepts it. Keisha will say they can do it.
what happened last year is the tennis tournament got pulled out of Hutchinson, and all of those people were going to come here because the lines left residue. So, but we can deal with that.
I think it needs to be understood that the CASA has approved pickleball lines on tennis courts to have tournaments. So that's not an issue.
Okay.
It is an issue in this town with this coach.
Nowhere else.
Nowhere else. So that's a misunderstanding that I don't want you guys to be left with, that is approved by CASA to have pickleball lines on tennis courts for tournaments.
Justin,
We'll revisit it.
Yeah, Justin, is that true? The coach don't want to approve it? Is that right?
There was some pushback from 308. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, can we get that worked out from 308? Hopefully, get that worked out.
I will work on that. We do have an agreement with them.
Okay.
So it's not just as simple as it sounds, but we can definitely revisit that with them.
Would you please report to us the next city council meeting where you're at on that, please?
Yes, sir.
We'll talk to the coaches, see what we can do. Okay?
That's all we can ask. It's just that, like I say, every week we get the same answer. Next week, next week.
Yes.
And it's just getting, I'm sorry, Sarah, but it is very frustrating on our part. It is a growing sport. It is, Wichita has the #1 women's doubles, single, and mixed doubles women, and #2 men. Wichita is a hotbed of it. Why can't we use some of that here?
Okay, well, we'll find out. All right. Is there anybody else like to speak to the council? Please come up.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Deborah
morning.
Tufel with the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce, 117 North Walnut. And I have with me Lisa Gleason from the United Way of Reno County.
Okay.
And we hope to take 5 minutes.
Okay.
We are here to report back to you on behalf of a task force that began meeting several weeks ago related to the citizen engagement process for the American Rescue Plan Act. And so we wanted to just give you, as well as the citizens, a glimpse at how citizens can get involved. There's information out on the rallyreno.org website about that engagement process. The task force that has been working on this is made up not only of our organizations, but also the Hutch Community Foundation, Hutch Rec, Startup Hutch, NAACP, the Young Professionals of Reno County, and Leadership Reno County. And we've had representation on the task force from council member Sarah Bagwell, as well as Jeff has been involved in some of those meetings. I would like to remind you that those American Rescue Plan Act dollars, as you all know, come from the U.S. Treasury, and the Treasury has set up specific categories of funding that fall under the ability for communities, cities, and counties that are recipients of the fund to use. But we do think it's important that the citizens have a voice in this, and so we're encouraging citizen groups or organizations that want to have facilitated discussions about the use of those funds to go to rallyreno.org. There's a button for convening a meeting, and you'll put in the information about who the organizer is of the meeting, the date and time, whether it is open to public engagement or if it's a private group. And we hope to have 60 of those citizen engagement meetings conducted by the end of September. So a very compact window of time for this to happen. Most of those engagement meetings should be between 8 and 20 people. We have had facilitators that are trained in the process that have specifically been trained by the K-State LeadCom team, who will then take all the data from the facilitated conversations and provide those for your input later this fall. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to talk a little bit about what we're hopeful as a joint resolution with the county as this moves forward. Lisa?
Good morning. Thank you for letting us be here. Lisa Gleason, 3800 Foxfire. We, first of all, I've had the ability to actually facilitate one meeting so far, and it's just, I guess it's exciting to hear about what do community members dream and hope for our future for our community, and what do they what is their wishes to be considered by you guys. So I just want you to know it's really exciting. These meetings are exciting, and it's a way for us to engage citizens of our community, just to hear what their dreams and wishes are for our community. We understand you guys are working on a joint resolution that I know will be going before the county commissioners on September 14th, and I think for you guys, maybe September 21st. Deborah, do you mind passing those to everybody over here? I know I just brought a copy of the finished product from the Reno County commissioners that they will be working on, and really the resolution. It's an unbinding resolution, so we know that we're going to give you input and you're going to listen, but ultimately you guys make the best decisions for the city as well as the county will be doing as well. But that's just a copy of their finished product. We understand you guys are working together to try to come up with that joint resolution. It outlines the uses described by the Treasury. The Treasury itself is the one who stated what the uses of these funds can be for support for public health, replacing public sector revenue loss, water and sewer infrastructure, equity-focused services, addressing negative economic impacts, premium pay for essential workers, and broadband infrastructure. That's what the Treasury has set as the guidelines, and I know that resolution is talking about that as well. The Treasury, that statement from the Treasury Department also encourages public input, so we hope you guys see that we're just working hard for you guys to kind of do that work up front so that you don't have to do that as well, and we can just bring you the data and help guide your decisions, whatever that might be. We also are just, I guess, proud. I'm really proud of the city and the county for being willing to listen to community input. I'm so proud of, I've lived in Hutchinson all my life, and to see us coming together, bringing ideas to the table, I think it's a good model that we can certainly bring forward to help you guys with in future ideas. And so having that collective impact brought forward, I'm just really proud of the fact you guys are willing to listen and be a part of that. I especially would like to thank Sarah for participating and being part of our meetings, and of course Mayor for allowing us to be a part of this, and Jeff certainly also. Thank you so much. Unless you have any further questions, we just appreciate your support, just asking for your support when that joint resolution comes before you on September 21st. So thank you.
Lisa, I did have just a quick question or two. On the resolution, Jeff had sent this out to us about a week ago, and I noticed it's written kind of with the county in mind. So is it going to be one resolution with both the city and the county language, or does it need to be separate, or?
I was going to ask the same thing.
We can tweak it and modify it however you all want. Based on internal communications, I was waiting for a consensus of at least the governing body of 3 or more before we slate this. A date was given that it would be slated for the agenda, although that's actually not the case. I'm going to wait until I at least have consensus from 3 of you before I place it.
I would like.
That's okay. You're fine.
Sorry. I would like, as long as it's worded in a way that we are going to accept, like we're going to look at the recommendations. Like how would I say it?
Advisory in nature. They're not.
Well, Lisa pointed out it's
they're
non-binding.
like the information's advisory, and that we're willing to look at the information and data, but is not bound by any of it. We still have the sole authority as the city on how the money's spent, but we're willing to take the time to look at any findings that come out of the committee.
That's a good way of putting it. It's very unbinding. I mean, you're not being held accountable by being a part of this resolution. It just is in good faith showing that we're going to go to all the work to get input from the community, that you're willing to at least listen to it and consider it if it.
Yeah, just to look
at
it.
That's pretty clear in the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Lisa, while you and Deborah are here, do you have enough information as to what the time frame would be as far as the distribution? I'm certainly aware of the resolutions and all of that, but the time frame for the distribution and how the expenditures would be allocated to municipalities over time?
Yeah, I believe it's within a 3-year time period. Jeff can probably speak to that better than I can.
I think it's an open window all the way to 2026 or something.
Yeah, I believe
crazy.
2026 is.
I may be dead and in the ground by the time these dollars are actually spent.
Yeah.
It's arriving in 2 tranches. The first half was supposed to arrive to cities, non-entitlement units like ours, in August. I don't know. I mean,
I believe the county has already
Yeah.
received their funds.
and then we'll get the next tranche 12 months after that, but we have until 2026 to encumber the money, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Angela would know.
We have our first half.
Okay.
We have our first half.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
Burning a
How
hole.
much is that, if I might ask?
Just over 3 million.
Okay.
And then Deborah, on the process side, I've had some requests from constituents to have access to maybe an online survey. Is that going to be part of the process? I realize that groups are so much more robust and productive in conversation for things like this.
I know we've talked about that in the committee, and we're thinking maybe, I'm not entirely sure, but maybe having the survey come after the groups.
Yeah.
That way you don't discourage people from actually going to the groups, but still but we're still throwing that up in the
Oh, I
air.
love that
Maybe
idea.
they can decide more on how that was but there was discussion of that, and I definitely think that a survey should be done.
Sarah's right. We did talk about that. We don't want to discourage the actual facilitated 90-minute conversation that really draws out and identifies the top priorities. So we didn't want a survey to come out first and then people feel like they'd had their say,
Yeah.
and so therefore they didn't need to engage in one of the meetings. But I do think it's possible there could be a follow-on survey, but we really are encouraging the meetings first. And we do want to make sure people know if you're not willing to gather in person, that's okay. We can also do Zoom meetings. So there's a way to have that facilitated and still be on a Zoom platform if that would be the citizens' preference. One last thing I do want to say is on the rallyreno.org website, we do have links to 2 resource pages that I think are important to point out. Both Reno County and the city have a capital improvement plan, and so those are linked there. So if citizens would read those first, perhaps before coming to the meeting, they may be more aware then of some of the priorities that are already on your plate that you might be looking at, and they can look at this process through that lens.
Pickleball. No, I don't think the Treasury is allowing for pickleball.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. So are we, Jeff, do you feel like you have consensus, or?
Not yet. There is one area I'd like to bring up. And I think I think I may have mentioned it internally. There is a provision where it states to provide premium pay for essential workers. Where are essential workers? Well, they're primarily in your governmental institutions such as the city. And in our prior negotiations, there have been enrichment strategies to the negotiations in lieu of some of those practices of giving hero pay and things like that, because community-wide there was this feeling that a lot of people put their lives out on the line and had exposures. And so there were concessions made and continue to be made in that area. So I would caution you all that when you do ultimately decide to take formal action on it in that one particular area, of course you have the discretion and authority to do that, but painting with a broad brush could cost the city upwards of $200,000 to $300,000, and it's a compounding effect typically. So you get these into the contract.
Well, my only question is, aren't these just examples?
This whole thing is a non-binding document, so it really doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it says.
Yeah.
It could say Santa Claus is coming tomorrow, and it wouldn't matter. But the reality is, if the spirit and intent is there by the governing body, that really may not be consistent with the past practices that you all have acted on, and it wouldn't be. So that would be my caution.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just I think you should just draw one up that says we're going to look at the information at least.
That's what this is. It's non-binding, so
So-
I wouldn't want to mislead you. You guys are exactly correct. There's nothing in here that binds you all other than spirit and intent that would be inconsistent with your past practice, potentially. Not all of you, but the governing body as a whole.
Yeah. I would like an opportunity to at least look at the information that comes from the public and a resolution that says that, right? How do you feel?
Totally. Oh, come on, Jackson.
Hold on. Go ahead.
I want to speak to that real fast. I just want to try to understand that concern a little bit, Jeff. So, there's this paragraph in here that lists the stated eligible uses. Right, so I think that's the paragraph that's causing you some concerns.
It doesn't cause me any personal concern whatsoever.
Okay.
I just find it to be inconsistent with what the governing body has previously done with the contracts.
Okay, so it's, I guess I just want to make sure that we all understand that language comes from the Treasury Department.
Totally permissible, non-binding document. I'm with you.
Right.
Just
And
all
you've
day.
already signed a binding document to agree to receive the funds, I presume.
I know there's some parameters federally that, of course, we would have to
So
follow.
I would just wanted to make it clear to the body that you've already agreed by accepting funds to comply with the guidelines. So one solution, if you were worried about the language in here, you just take the paragraph out, but you're already bound to comply with the guidelines. So anyway,
You could
just
spend
wanted- just
100% of
wanted
it on sewer projects if you wanted to.
Sure.
But the
Absolutely.
reality
Yeah.
is, in a community that's as diverse as ours with our needs, that's probably not where it's going to go. I just didn't want to get y'all in the corner where you're philosophically misaligned with your prior work.
Well, I would just,
yeah,
I
I
guess
accept
what
that. I
I'm
just wanna
saying
make
is,
sure. I don't
if you
think
gotta
that's
change the
correct.
words, just, if you need it more fluffy, I'm fine with that. I just want a commitment to the people of Hutchinson that their time in the meetings are gonna be heard before we decide what to do with the money. That's all I want. It can be completely changed, but I just think I would like to hear, because we're only 5 people, but if we can get some input from people all around in every different diverse community, or they might have ideas that we can relay and think about, then we could give to staff and the directors and stuff like that who would know more what they could do with those ideas and whether they are obtainable or not. But sometimes creative solutions can come out of discussion, and I would just want to commit. I'm fine with committing that we will look at those findings.
That's
during our
totally
discussion.
spelled out in the last 2 paragraphs of
Yeah.
this document. It says
Okay, so are you
very
saying that you're
explicitly.
okay with that? Are you saying you're okay with
Yes,
it?
I'm okay with
And
that.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I just counted 3.
You counted
Did I?
3. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've been
Yeah,
waiting for you to
Okay.
say something.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't need to beat the horse to death.
Well, thank you again. We encourage everyone to go to rallyreno.org and sign up to be part of one of those citizen engagement meetings. So encourage the citizens of Hutchinson and Reno County to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, we haven't even got to the
I know.
agenda
I
yet.
haven't got to the agenda yet.
That's very clear.
Okay, are we still in communications? I think we are. Is there anybody else, right? Is there anybody else like to come to the? Okay.
Item 6A through E is the consent agenda.
I will move to.
Dang, that's as fast as I.
Second.
Oh, my word.
Iris De Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave Lang.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
7A is a public hearing to consider submittal of CDBG downtown commercial rehabilitation grant application for 25 East Avenue A.
I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Iris De Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave Lang.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Good morning, y'all. Ryan Beatles, Director of Planning and Development with City of Hutchinson. I will go through this rather quickly because you all had this on your agenda back in July. This is really just a amendment to this grant application for the Hoke Building at 25 East Avenue, East First Avenue. Just a quick summary once again. This is rehabilitation of the Hoke Building. This grant would pay for structural repairs, installation of fire sprinkler system, replacement of electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. There are a few items that were removed from the grant application. Those items will still be done. They're just not going to be covered on the grant application. Mostly that's the masonry work and things like that on the outside of the building. So the revised grant application is being revised from $245,000 down to $230,250 with a $307,000 total project cost. The property owners are going to be providing the remaining $76,750 as match. This will continue the goals of the CDBG, as you all did declare that this building was blighted at your July meeting. And that this would continue the elimination of blight in downtown commercial district and would still continue the employment of 7 new full-time positions, with 4 of those being low to medium income. So notice was published in the Hutchinson News on August 28th as the public hearing has been opened. So this is an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on the proposed project as well as to introduce any other project proposals. And then at the conclusion of it, there would be need to be a motion to close the public hearing. And with that, I will step aside for any questions you all may have or any comments from the public.
Ryan, I've just got a question, and perhaps you've talked to the developer as far as, if I can ask this correctly, the sequence of timing from this CDBG grant to the other source of loans and grants that are anticipated, how the sequence of that would all work out as far as their ultimate completion of this to the continuation of the next phase.
Yep. The Davenports had spoke at the last meeting that they anticipate to have this work wrapped up within probably about a year. As was stated last time, they should know within 45 days if they've been approved for the CDBG grant. So they are committed to continuing this work even if they don't get the CDBG grant. It just would be at a little bit of a slower pace. But they are anticipating having this rehabilitation work wrapped up within about a year.
Well, I know these, the sequence of this, they can't be absolutely synonymous with one another, but just some reassurance that there won't be a huge gap of time from this phase versus the next.
No, if you drive by now, they're already jumping in with full feet, doing demolition. They have gotten approval or they're in the process, I believe, of getting approval from the state for tax credits for the historic building. So there's a lot of moving pieces with this. So they're, this is just one part of it. But they are going to be continuing doing work regardless of kind of what happens with this grant. As I said, it might be slowed down a little bit if they didn't get it, but they've been working nonstop for about the last 3 months on that building.
That's my understanding as well. I met this morning with Mark Davenport and felt that we had every assurance that the project would go forward regardless. Although it does give capacity to consider other projects that are just as necessary in the community. So there is benefit to doing it in support of the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like anybody from the public is going to talk. So I'm going to move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Iris De Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave Lang.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
I move to approve the resolution certifying legal authority and authorization to apply for the 2021 Kansas Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program from the Kansas Department of Commerce. Submittal of a grant application to the Kansas Department of Commerce Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program for the rehabilitation of 25 East First Avenue, and authorizing the mayor to sign the appropriate documents to apply for the grant.
Second.
Iris De Carvalho.
Yes.
Dayline.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7B is a public hearing to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Iris De Carvalho.
Yes.
Dayline.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. This budget hearing is to allow us to exceed our revenue neutral rate. It is to follow the Senate Bill 13. As a reminder, because it feels like it's been so long since we talked about the budget, the majority of the council agreed to keep our mill levy consistent with last year. So that would put our 2022 budget at 44.462 mils, while our revenue neutral rate would be 43.588 mils. So in order to exceed our revenue neutral rate, we have passed a resolution saying that we intend to exceed our revenue neutral rate. That was provided to the county clerk on July 20th, as per SB 13. We also published in the Hutchinson News our intent on August 26th, at least 10 days prior to this meeting, and it was posted on our city website, which is required as well. So the next step is to allow the public to comment on our exceeding the revenue neutral rate, and for the council to ask any questions. After everyone's allowed to talk, we will close the public hearing, and then you will pass the resolution to exceed our revenue neutral rate if that is so desired. Are there any questions? Is there anyone who would like to speak?
I'd love to speak. And, largely, this is a formality that we've all discussed previously as far as our understanding of how this came about and why it's different than prior years. It gives the city additional capacity. It's not a subterfuge tactic to throw a zinger to the taxpayers or property owners. It's merely something that I think is in our best interest to pass. It gives us flexibility to be adaptive.
Jeff, I had one clarification on the budget with the consoles. You indicated that the county was not going to cost share. Was that ever remedied?
Let me pull in a more direct resource that has more intimate knowledge of that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Jeff Hooper, Chief of Police. I do know that the County Commission and then with Randy Partington, their intent, we are in negotiations right now with them to revise that contract with dispatch. And so they have that money budgeted for next year. Their intent is to keep it in the general fund pending the outcome of those negotiations with the contract. And then they'll determine whether they're going to pay their cost share or how much of that they're going to pay for those consoles.
And can you remind me what that amount is? Is it like 130,000 or?
It's around $50,000 to the county.
On their okay.
On their side, right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. A little bit more, I think. I don't remember the exact dollars, but it's roughly around $50,000 or so.
And that's an annual
Correct.
cost. So if you could just keep us aware of those negotiations, I sure don't want the city to shoulder the burden of that cost year after year after year. But I feel confident in your diplomacy skills to get that negotiated.
Paul Brown and I had a conversation last week on kind of where we stand with working with those contracts, and I know their intent is to still get back with the county and county legal aid on that. So, because we're not only looking at that contract, we're looking at all the contracts between the city and the county. But so far, I think we're all on the same page with compromise and working through those. So it appears to be a really good relationship there that we just got to work out a few of the details.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
I would move to close the public hearing if there's No further questions.
Second.
Okay.
Perez de Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
I would move to approve resolution of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Perez de Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
No.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 7C is a public hearing to consider adoption of the 2022 budget.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Perez de Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Okay. Now we must conduct our normal budget hearing, which will allow the public to speak to any items regarding the budget that they would wish that aren't specific to the revenue neutral rate. I wanted to make you aware of some changes that happened after we printed these budget books for you. The Hutch Recreation Commission's budget wasn't included in those because at that
Right.
time I didn't have the numbers from them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I will do is I will, pending what happens after this, we hope to issue temporary notes in order to purchase the Atrium. If those are approved, I will go ahead and add the payments of those notes into the Capital Improvement Fund. The Capital Improvement Fund is where we transfer our transient guest tax. So you will see that change. And then also I wanted to make you aware of 2 bridge replacements that are in the CIP, and we're switching those years. Jeff Peterson made me aware that the bridge review for Hoagland Street Bridge is a priority and will need to be done next year. So he is taking the 6th Avenue Bridge and moving it to 2026 where the Hoagland Bridge was. It does not affect any dollar amounts. They're about the
Okay.
same cost.
Just time.
But I wanted to make you aware of that before we finalize the budget. So those are the changes that will be made. As a reminder, it does have the mill levy at 44.462, and then Hutch Rec is going to use the revenue neutral mill levy at 6.613. Are there any questions?
Angela, I've got several questions, if I may, but I first of all want to say I really appreciated the budget document format of this year. It was particularly interested as far as the additional detail that previous budget documents had not included. And this is really more for my clarification, not questioning the budget itself. And I want to refer, first of all, to page 139, the review of property tax summary. And your graph there shows on the property tax summary of a reduction in property taxes of $993,064. Perhaps you have an explanation as to why that would be in a downward trend as far as the property tax revenue, or is this the fund or the revenue?
That's because the Hutch Rec mill levy wasn't included, so it did show a decrease, which is probably something I should figure out a better way to present next time. But that is just because the Hutch Rec
So that's
wasn't
what
included.
triggered that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. My next question is on page 45. Middle of the page there, it talks about capital project funds, and you give a historical review from fiscal year 2019 through proposed 2022. And there's quite a fluctuation as far as that construction in process in 2019 of 4.89 million, then it jumps all the way the next year to 16 million, then down to 14 million, then up to 10 million, and then back down to 8.6. What would be the reasoning for the fluctuation of the construction in progress, or what does that number represent?
That amount represents the amount we actually spent in the CIP fund. I would have to look at it more to figure out the timing of projects and whether they didn't quite align. There might have been something budgeted in 2019 that was completed in 2020 that accounted for some of that swing.
So that downward trend from 2020 adopted to 2022 proposed of $2.2 million, would that mean that we would be spending less than
Yes.
$2.2 million less budgeted?
Yes, and part of that is because the fire station, which is part of the 22 CIP, is actually going to be started in 21. So I moved some of that expense to align with when it's actually going to happen. So.
Okay, alrighty. My next is on page 145. Where it talks about franchise fee summary, that there is a downward trend for fiscal year 2022 of $394,000. And then it breaks that down as far as the downward trend of electricity franchise, gas franchise, and cable franchise. Does that mean we have less customers that you are projecting for 2022, or exactly why is that a negative reduction?
It's more to align with the trend that we've seen over the long term. Electricity is sometimes a guessing game, depending on whether we have, depending on the weather. But like the cable franchise fee, we do typically see a downward trend. I think more people are going away from cable and going to streaming
fewer
services.
customers.
Fewer customers.
Yes.
Efficiency trends
Same with
all over.
telephone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. I think that's all my questions for clarification, but I really did appreciate the content of the document itself.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to hear that.
I know there's been some talk on the National League of City level to try to extract franchise fees from the Netflixes, and I don't think that's going over very well.
I can stand in front of the red box too.
Yeah.
Collect some coins. I don't know where that stands nationally.
Yeah, because we're going to continue to see that cable go
Yeah.
all
Yep.
the way down to nothing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty substantial part of our budget. I think it's about 15%, isn't it?
Yep.
Franchise fees.
Yep.
If there's any more comments, we have to close the hearing.
I was trying to bring up budget on the website, but it says technical error. It won't let me do it.
Do you have your budget here?
I don't like big books anyway. I was gonna pull it up online, but it's saying technical error. And it was doing this to me last night. I don't know if it works again. I mean, I understand, like, when I went over the budget, that, I mean, I'm not completely satisfied with the budget. I mean, I would like to see us have the ability to do a revenue neutral rate. I noticed that even though we had a surplus, we're completely dipping right back down, and so it just seems like I'm not completely satisfied with that trend, I guess. I understand that we can't. I went and I did look for a lot of things. I wasn't able to really look at the, I think our personnel and insurances have gone up. I know that the extra consoles was a part of that. I know that, but I'm still not satisfied, because I don't think we can, that's not something that's sustainable if we go from 7 million. And there's like, we didn't even retain any of the surplus that we had, and still had to make major cuts. I can't, because of technical difficulties, because the website keeps telling me technical error every time I search something. I was going to bring something up. I voiced all this at our budget meetings, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Pyrus de Cavallo,
Yes.
Dave
Yes?
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8A is to consider adoption of the 2022 budget.
I move to approve the 2022 budget.
Second.
Pyrus de Cavallo,
Yes.
Dave
Yes?
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
No.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8B is to consider the ordinance authorizing the Atrium temporary note costs.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. We have two actions in front of you in order to issue temporary notes for the purchase of the atrium. Per our IRS regulations, we need to do this first ordinance, authorize the atrium general obligation bonds. The ordinance does say bonds, and that is correct. That is the correct language we need to use, even though we're going to do temporary notes. So this will allow us to proceed with that project and to allow the temp notes. The $670,000 will be borrowed, and the remainder of the purchase price will be paid out of our current reserve of the transient guest tax, which is just over $950,000. Staff recommends and legal counsel recommends passing this ordinance as stated. We also have Tyler Ellsworth from Kutak Rock here as well. He has been helping with this project, so he is available for any questions as well.
For the benefit of the public, perhaps you could briefly summarize the method of the payment of the 4 years as to the source of where that those funds will come from?
Yes. These temporary notes will be paid off over 4 years using the current transient guest tax that we collect. The payments will be under the amount that we normally average receiving every year. So we feel that it will be sufficient to pay these, and no tax revenue will be needed to pay these temporary notes.
Okay.
Well, I know throughout the community there's been a great deal of debate and consternation over the Atrium Hotel and the decisions that this governing body is going to be making this morning. I would reiterate that this has not been at all a hasty decision to get to this point. We began this process back in 2017 when a task force was created to begin to deliberate over the anticipated demise of the Atrium Hotel, much to our disappointment. There was a market study done that analyzed multiple site locations, and the conclusions were that the current Atrium location site is the most viable location for a new quality hotel project. I think we would, and you would talk to the folks at the Convention Visitors Bureau, and they would tell you that the Hutchinson market is way underserved for quality hotel rooms, and we are losing business. We're losing opportunities to recapture that convention market. And so this is a difficult decision as to why we were having to invest $1.6 million to acquire this property, with the anticipation that we're going to have to spend another $1 million or so, or some estimated number for demolition. And then the final chapter would be locating a developer that would build us a new quality hotel. But this is a major, major project. I think it burns our soul, all of us, to have to invest this $1.6 million. But it is really a necessary step if we're going to recapture this business and revitalize that travel and tourism industry the way I know we can. So
And keep some of what we have.
and keep us.
You know, let's be honest.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to own the thing any more than anybody else does, but the reality is.
Jeff, while we're here on the subsequent step as far as the demo, do you have any idea in your mind as to when the RFPs would likely go out for consideration of the demolition of the hotel as well as the timing?
I'm in discussions with one private group right now that may have interest in advancing that process. And also, they understand the importance of bringing to the table private equity to prime the pump, if you will, for part of the project and to share in that burden with the city. I still want to vet them a little bit more. The chamber's aware of this party, and something that we will probably sit down and talk about in the next couple of weeks. And if we feel confident that we have some viability there, we will definitely bring it back to the governing body and have that internal discussion to see if you guys want to take advantage of whatever enrichments they're talking about bringing to the table. It's my hope to maximize whatever that opportunity is for the city and for the taxpayers. Of course, you all have given us that guidance to do that whenever possible, and that's what we hope to bring back.
Good. That's
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah.
And it really is very encouraging that you're at that point. Very good.
Thank you.
I think that the Atrium debate, it hurts on all ends. You have people who feel like the city's treating them unfairly, and then you have a building that we're gonna pay premium dollars for, and then you have people that don't understand why the city's getting involved in a private sector area. So I think all these questions are legitimate and should be asked. But from somebody who kind of stands on both sides of the fence on this issue, I will say that if we don't do something with the Atrium, it's gonna hurt the city far worse than if we wait for a private investor to come in, or we demolish the building eventually through other means. I think the main reason why we're doing this is to control the path of that property so that we can get a viable hotel into our area to support our needs for our tournaments and the fair and other things that we really just can't afford to lose as a city. Because if we lose some of these big events, it'll be like another nail in the coffin. We really just cannot afford it as a city. So yes, are we paying more than we should? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're not, from my perspective, but I think it's necessary because we need to steer this in a direction that is going to be profitable for the city in the long run. So it's a risk that I believe this governing body is taking, but I think it's a necessary risk. And I think that we have thought of all the concerns that the public has probably thought as well. So that's all I'm going to say.
Mr. Cantrell, how fast do you think this will go? I mean, you're in negotiations till we start seeing bulldozers and stuff like that over there.
The first big step at this point is to close on the property, take title. And we still have to clear a few thresholds contingently that we have out right now. It does put a little bit of burden on the seller's part, but it also puts a time clock to the deal for everybody at the table. So I wouldn't say anything less than 60 days.
Okay.
Even if everything was perfectly set, all the parties were in total agreement, we had the money in hand, everything was ready to go, 30 days would be a typical closing under that scenario. And we're not there yet.
Right.
But
well, I know once we pass this today, people are gonna, within 2 weeks or so, I'm just saying that, how come we're not tearing it down yet? You know, I know they're gonna ask us what's going on with it. So people ask why, you understand what I'm trying to say. Yes. So I'm just trying to get a kind of a feel on when you think it'd be down. Now, get me straight on this. We're not tearing it all down, am I right? We're keeping part of it up?
Convention center.
Convention center, right?
That's correct.
The convention center, but all the rooms are coming down, correct?
that is a very logical conclusion. That is our intent.
Okay.
And unless we find ourselves in some really unexpected scenario and discussions and negotiations with a private developer, which I wouldn't support, those rooms need to come down.
Okay.
But as far as it being contractually bound as an absolute matter, it's not.
Right.
But that's our intent.
This is the first step in order
It
to
is.
get to convention. So next, we get a couple more steps to go through before that we see a building up, correct?
You're absolutely
More
right.
than a couple.
Okay.
Lots of steps.
Lots of
Steve.
steps. Okay. I know I'm gonna get those questions, so. just
Good
let me know.
question.
All right, thank you.
Well, I would move to approve ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city of Hutchinson, Kansas to pay the cost of certain improvements, all pursuant to Charter Ordinance number 50 of the city, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Paris de Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8C, consider resolution authorizing temporary notes.
Okay, the next action we have is to pass the resolution allowing the actual issuance of the temporary notes. It includes all the terms of the notes. We went out to bid with local banks, and we received 7 responses from
Wow.
local banks. So we are very happy with the level of participation and interest. People's Bank and Trust was awarded the bid. They had an average interest rate of 0.49%. So we received their bid all the way up to 1.5%. So we are very happy with that rate. People's Bank has agreed to a closing date of October 5th, so that's when we would actually receive the money, and that works with the timeline to purchase the Atrium. So if council agrees, staff recommends approval of the resolution as provided.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of $670,000 principal amount of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2021, taxable under federal law of the city of Hutchinson, Kansas, for the purpose of temporarily financing the cost of certain internal improvements of the city, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Paris de Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave Line,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
How about a 5-minute break?
John and I are like, Dave, give us a minute.
We'll have a 5-minute break.
Okay.
What time is it?
It's 10:54, so come back at 11.
We'll come back at 11.
Okay.
to consider the ordinance authorizing the law enforcement center parking lot bonded costs.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. Now we have the ordinance per IRS regulations authorizing law enforcement center parking lot costs to be bonded. Again, this is required per the IRS regulations so that we can spend the money before we actually go out to bond the project. The total project cost that you approved was $67,411, and $18,771 of that would be reimbursed by the county for their share. So we are requesting to authorize $55,000. That will include the bonding costs. So council and staff and bonding counsel, legal counsel recommend approving this ordinance. Are there any questions?
Okay, I will move to approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city of Hutchinson, Kansas to pay the cost of certain improvements as all pursuant to Charter Ordinance number 50 of the city. Authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris Cavallo,
Yes.
Dave Blank.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8E is to consider the ordinance adopting the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas cities.
Paul Brown, City Attorney. Council, you were given a copy of the proposed ordinance, and also there was an article that noted most of the changes in the Uniform Public Offense Code. These are the pamphlets that the police department uses every year. The idea is to, and by the way, I think that's the Dillon Nature Center.
I think it is too.
If you put the trees and everything together, there wasn't any photo credit, so I couldn't confirm it. But each year we update that to comply with the changes that the legislature makes. This year, the changes, they're not tremendous changes. Things of like sexual battery, remove the exemption for the spouse if that's the offender. Watercraft, proper flotation devices. Trespassing on a critical infrastructure facility, that's refineries and chemical plants and our water plants and gas and electric. Always had trespassing for railroad properties. This is in the similar vein. These are important functions, and you just don't want anybody around them. And as a practical matter, these are the times in which we live, and it's a security issue. So that's the purpose of that. Unlawful tampering with electronic monitoring equipment. Don't cut off your ankle bracelet. Distribution of unattributed applications for advanced voting ballots. There were some election violations that the legislature passed. Most of those are fairly minor in nature. And there was one for commercialization of wildlife that changed one word. Okay, and that's basically all I have on the Uniform Public Offense Code. I'd ask the council to approve that update.
So this is just basically an effort to make sure our local laws align with new state laws, whether or not we agree with those new state laws.
Well,
Yep.
it's state law whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah. I was gonna.
May the record show.
Well, and what it allows to do, when you include it in these, and it's part of our city ordinance, then our police officers can file that citation in municipal court, and it can be prosecuted there. Any state law that's violated can be filed in the district court. So it just gives our court jurisdiction over that.
Motion to approve ordinance incorporating the Uniform Public Offense Code, 37th edition by reference, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris Cavallo.
Yes.
Dave Blank.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8F, consider ordinance adopting the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas cities.
And then the follow-up to that is the standard traffic ordinance. We actually didn't amend this last year because the legislature had such an abbreviated session. There were no changes that impacted it. So there was no addition in between. And they've kind of taken the additions and they've taken the years off of them and just put addition on the outside. But for the standard traffic ordinance, the changes, I mean, there's a lot of definitional changes, but they relate directly to the changes in the substantive statutes. There's some changes about funeral processions, and you'll see a subsequent ordinance proposed to you about funeral processions. We had our own provisions for that. What the legislature passed is identical to it. It's word for word, which probably indicates that our previous ordinance was either one used by most Kansas cities or was part of a model code or both. So now that it puts it in one place, it helps the officers when they're out on the road to be able to look those up. They have their computer, but they also have the hand copies as well. So that's the reason it's being left in there. There are some provisions on impounding motor vehicles, changing fleeing or attempting to elude police from willfully to knowingly. I talked to the chief about that. That really doesn't help much. And passing a stationary authorized utility telecom vehicle. Move over when you're passing the cable guy. Okay? There were some changes amended. Should have happened the last time for transportation of alcoholic beverages. That's to address the liquor to go, the drink to go provisions that have been provided, margaritas to go, whatever name you want to call that. Funeral procession was removed from parades and processions. Categorized some display of license plates for certain truck, tractors, and antique vehicles. Spilling loads on highways with special rules for hauling agricultural forage commodities.
Hey.
I'm sure that was on your conscience right now. And then failure to comply with a traffic citation. The court now has the authority to waive fine and cost based upon manifest hardship. And that's basically it for the standard traffic ordinances, and we'd ask that you'd make that adoption of that ordinance.
I will move to approve the ordinance incorporating the 48th edition of the standard traffic ordinance by reference. Authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
Pires de Cavallo,
Yes.
Dave-Line,
Yes?
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8G, consider ordinance repealing section 23402 and sections 23801 through 23805 of chapter 23 of the Hutchinson City Code.
And this is the final part. We have the provisions that are in these two books. We also have provisions in the code itself, separate in the code itself, where we have everything else. Everything else. And some of these provisions, now being included in the booklets, would appear in duplicate in the rest of the code.
It's a
So
cleanup.
these specific provisions are being repealed, so there's not duplicates.
Yeah, it's just a cleanup.
And one of those, a couple of those have to do with littering, which is, we had our own littering. They had a provision in here that I took a closer look at because it had a minimum $250 fine. I said, well, for the past couple times, so we don't always want to do that. But it covers different situations for like where you throw your mattress on somebody's private property. Those kind of things. Littering from a motor vehicle is still just a regular offense, same fine schedule for everything else in the code. So those provisions are not a problem, rarely arise, and these provisions can be omitted and deleted so that we just follow the booklets, and it saves everybody a lot of time, and it's more convenient for the officers.
Motion to approve ordinance repealing section 23402 littering from a motor vehicle of Article 4 prohibited conduct and Article 8 federal processions right-of-way and liability, section 23801 through 23805 of chapter 23 motor vehicles and traffic of the code of the city of Hutchinson, Kansas, and authorize the mayor to sign. I hope I did that right.
Second.
Pires de Cavallo,
Yes.
Davline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 9A, consider the lease agreement with Hutchinson Community College regarding the sports arena.
I'm almost not sure where to start on this one. I can tell you that there were multiple drafts to amend this contract before I ever started 11 years ago. That's how long it's taken for this to kind of come into fruition. And it just didn't happen over time. One of the things that changed it the most, and I'm probably too far away from my microphone, IT's gonna get me, is the renovations to the sports arena, which changed a lot of what was there. It was quite the renovation, $29 million. And for Councilmember Dave Lyons' benefit, I know he will want these things reviewed, even though that's not why it's before the council. But in April 21, 2015, we passed a sales tax percentage of 0.35% for the sports arena. The sales tax election, was actually on April 7th. We passed the ordinance approving the sales tax on April 21, 2015. The renovations were $29.4 million. Hutchinson Community College contributes $4.5 million towards that project. And it's approximately $500,000 per year from them. And we'll finish up, according to my calculations, in September of 2026. The amount unpaid on that bond issue for it is, after we pay in October, we pay $2.8 million and some change in October. The balance will be $13,664,000. Projected payoff date is mid-2024. Okay, so there's your update on the sports arena and the bond issue and the amounts owed, because I knew Councilmember Dave Long would ask, and Angela's gone, so have to get that done. Now about the contract itself, many of the provisions remain the same. If you didn't know, we divide the expenses with the college on the operation of the sports arena. Basically, we pay all the utilities, they pay all what they call the commodities, and then we each reimburse each other for 50% of those costs. So we basically split the expenses of the sports arena. Okay? And many of the duties of the sports arena and maintaining it remain the same also. Ours is kind of the outside, the structure itself, and then the inside, the repairs, the maintenance, unless they're major repairs, are the responsibility of Hutchinson Community College. So the changes that were necessitated by the renovations, it changed the locations of things. It changed the location of rooms. It changed the location of offices for Hutchinson Community College for their athletic department. So in this particular contract, all those things have been updated. Now, some of this got updated before we're updating the contract now. The additions to that, the rental policy, you've seen it there. It's quite detailed. I can't take credit for that. That's Merrill Dye's work. And then we updated a contract with the American Legion also at an earlier time. So the primary changes in the contract you're being asked to approve, and all these other contracts are adopted by reference along with this contract, are concessions with the Hutchinson Community College. We used to do a percentage split. Now they're just going to pay us $15,000 annually, which historically is about what we got anyway. They asked to have that flat amount. They have a chance to, maybe make some money. Not likely it would change a lot over the years with the activities there, but they get to operate the concessions, and for our budgeting purposes, we know what we'll receive each year.
While you're on that, and I don't want to interrupt your train of thought.
Okay.
But I do have a thought here. I looked at that language there, and I looked at best business practices. And this is a multi-year renewable going out 25 years. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be smart for us to perhaps add some brief language to that section, simply saying, adding language to include an annual cost of living adjustment to the $15,000, because time goes by, inflation occurs, and wouldn't it be in our best interest to build in a cost of living adjustment annually?
I don't know that I have the answer to that.
I didn't think you would.
But we would have to get, the college has already approved this contract.
I know.
We would have to send it back to them with that proposed amendment.
I mean, I agree with John on this
I do
one.
too.
I know it delays it, and it's been a lingering issue, but again, for business practices, my thought is that shouldn't we anticipate that inflation will occur, that, and we're not talking a lot of money,
No.
but it's just simply looking out for the best interest of the city, that a simple annual cost of living adjustment could be included in the lease agreement.
The, maybe a way to address that would be to stick with the percentage of division rather than a cost of living, because that cost of living is hard to predict. It doesn't always equate well to anything, and if that's a concern of the council, going back to the percentages probably makes sense, because whatever comes in would be divided.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. I don't know why we would move away from that. In Section 11 of merchandise and novelty sales, they're still taking a percentage of anybody who rents the facility. So I think we have it just makes sense. Why complicate it? I'm not sure why we would revise that particular piece of it.
Yeah, I'm good with just the split and not doing a flat rate, just because of the longevity of the agreement.
All right, well, while we're on the subject, though, are there any other changes, things you have a concern about? Because if we send it back to the college and say the council won't approve it without this change, then we want to tell them all of your
Everything all at
concerns.
once.
Not to break your train of thought, but I was particularly pleased to see in the new language as it related to the parking lot, that there will now be a cost sharing of the resurfacing and reconstruction of the parking lot. I think this is smart on our part to share that with the community college and other entities like the USD 308. So that was really needed, and we can see it now that it was needed. So that I was particularly pleased with seeing that new language.
I noticed language in the contract about staff and basically the college is going to pick up the staffing. But where does Hutch Rec figure in with all of this? And is that on the city's portion, or do they have a separate agreement with the college? Because I didn't see any mention of them in any of this.
I will just stop and say that they're not a party to the contract, and then Justin's going to tell you how everything else works with it.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. So the specific question about Hutch Rec, so all of their activities that happen in the sports arena, so all the cost and revenue they generate actually gets tied into the Fun Valley agreement. And so we changed that agreement several years ago from Fun Valley to say athletic facilities, athletic fields. So they actually operate that at a profit. And so any time they collect concessions or tournament revenue, it goes into that Fun Valley fund, which then helps that subsidy or lack of subsidy at the end of the year for Fun Valley. So they really are not part of this contract at all.
Okay.
They do supervise the building, so when Hutch Rec has an event or practice, they have a facility supervisor, and a college actually generally does not supervise the building during those nights. So does that answer your question?
It does, it does. The other question I had is, so let's say any other interested party, let's say the Convention and Visitors Bureau, if they're bidding on an event that will need to take place there, they don't have any, I guess, standing, or they don't have any priority, even though that's bringing in visitors to the community. I just want to understand how that all works.
They do. So initial conversations would happen between whoever the entity that wants to rent it, whether it's the chamber or somebody else, and the college. If there's a disagreement over dates, which there have been over time, final decision actually comes to the city manager. For that.
Okay.
So hopefully Jeff was aware of that.
Okay.
Seems more and more that's kind of a trend I'm seeing. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And generally those are happening, 8, 10, 18 months ahead of when that event's scheduled. So there's plenty of time to work it out.
Okay.
On those. And oftentimes it's the college has been willing to work with us or work with whoever it is. So.
And they've been a great partner. I don't want to paint it differently, but it just seems like the contract really locks down the facility for the college's needs first, which I get, but it is a $29.4 million community-funded project. So I just want to make sure that when opportunities arise to bring events and people and dollars into the community, that they're given a high priority.
Yeah. We agreed completely, and that's why we left that in there. That
Yeah, you left that in there, didn't you?
If it's better for the city to have whatever event, and an HCC event has to get moved, then at the end of the day, the city has that authority.
Okay. Thank
Now,
you, Justin.
I got a question for you, okay? When you rent when citizens rent the sports arena, who's it up to? I know what the cost is because I get told about it all the time. How do we come to that cost, though?
So that rental agreement was approved by City Council back in 17.
17.
Is when that,
Yeah.
So that's always going to stay the same unless we change it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It probably is time to revisit those rates.
Excuse me?
It probably is time to revisit some of those rates in the next year or so.
Well, the citizens are screaming and they're too high for citizens, so that's why I was trying to figure out how it works.
What are
the rates?
Yeah, it varies by how much of the building you want to rent and those sorts of things. So
There's also a clause in there that's all negotiable.
Yep.
So that gives us the proviso to negotiate
correct
to satisfy the parties.
It's really just a matter of if we want to subsidize it more for lower rates.
Yep.
Because I'm assuming we're subsidizing it.
Well, the biggest complaint I have, we're taxpayers. We pay for it already. Why do we have to get such a big rental on them since we pay for it already as taxpayers? So that always bothered me. So I had a time here to ask, and that was set in 2017.
2017. Yeah, and a lot of the costs were based on actual cost of running and operating the building.
Sure.
And then we do look at economic benefits. So if there's bringing in a tourist, a lot of tourists from out of town, then we have the ability to adjust that rate.
Okay, thank you.
Justin, this is kind of a broad question. Is there any monitoring system of the boiler system itself that monitors the level of cooling and heating and so on, that we're not just cooling and heating open air when it's not in use? Does the system allow that?
It does. It's a very, very sophisticated system. There's actually sensors in each room that knows when people are in there or not in there, and so the limits go up and down on what the individual rooms.
So the individual
are
rooms,
heated or
the zones, it's zoned accordingly.
Yep, it's a very efficient, very very modern system. One thing that I think really paints that story is when Westar at the time, when they told us what they thought the electrical was going to be, we were nowhere close to that. I think it was over $100,000 or $200,000 increase that they thought we'd see. We never saw. We saw about half of that. So I think just based on the size of the building, it's being cooled and heated very efficiently. Yeah.
Good to know.
The lighting system's the same way. Lights won't come on unless somebody's in the building or in the room.
Council, you don't have to take any action. I will draft some language to implement what you've requested, and we will send that to the college for their consideration first before it comes back to the council.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful.
Item 10A is reports from the council.
Okay, Nancy, you got anything?
Nope.
Mr. David?
I know the hour's late,
But.
but I did have an item here that, going back a little bit historically, over the last several years, the council has had some discussions internally as far as the impact or the merits of considering what's called an extraterritorial jurisdiction. And you may or may not have heard that terminology, but the long and short of it is that it would give the city of Hutchinson authority to have jurisdiction over zoning and land use within a 3-mile jurisdiction of the city limits of Hutchinson. There's Ryan. And we were just briefly kind of going through some of that background as far as what the extraterritorial jurisdiction means. And we've chosen not to formally move this forward in any way. One of the questions was visiting with the county commissioners, because they ultimately would have it. South Hutchinson does have extraterritorial jurisdiction. We do not. As a development-minded person, I've always been somewhat sensitive to how much jurisdiction we really should have beyond the city limits of Hutchinson as it would relate to economic development, industrial development, and so on. So with that, Ryan, perhaps you could maybe give us your insights as to the jurisdiction.
Yeah, so that was a goal of the comprehensive plan. One of the goals was to at least look at extraterritorial jurisdiction. With the change in the city management, change in the county administration, with COVID, those conversations have kind of been pushed down the road a little bit. My personal opinion, my professional opinion on ETJ is it works really well in really fast-growing communities. Like up in Johnson County, we've got a whole bunch of different communities that are, kind of fighting for that same space. Usually, you'll have them all come together and say, "Okay, I'm going to have this area. You're going to have this area." We don't really have that here in Hutch. What we do have is with the county is we have the area of influence. Anytime there's a planning commission case, the county does notify us. We have the option to provide comments. We send it out to our development review committee. So we are kind of have a pseudo ETJ, but without actually having any zoning jurisdiction or zoning authority. Professionally, what my recommendation would be is, and I think what would serve the community better is for us to look at an annexation plan. And that would be where we actually sit down over the next 10 years. We get together with the county, we get together with the development community, we get together with the planning commission and city council, and we put together a plan of kind of where we want to see the city grow over the next 10 years. And that way we can focus our infrastructure expansions and things like that in a more targeted area. The ETJ makes it a little bit more difficult. You could have development over here, the development over here, and that's not really, in my opinion, the best use of our resources. So what I would recommend is that instead of us going for full ETJ, that we would look at doing an annexation plan. So that's just my professional opinion on that.
Very good. Appreciate that insight.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes good sense.
I've had
Yeah,
wonderful
it really
experiences
does.
with this and terrible, and always get drugged to the court either way.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, Miss Sarah.
Nope.
Jade?
I'm sorry, I do have a few items.
That's
I'll-
okay.
I'll try to be quick.
I figured so.
So, you may have seen last week that the 43rd Street Bridge near Prairie Hills Middle School has been opened. And so I wondered what our long-term plans were now for that traffic light, if we really needed, we had budgeted to replace it, I believe, but do we need it? Is there a sense that the school prefers it stay there? I had some feedback from residents who think it's a little redundant. I didn't know what staff's feeling was on that issue.
That was definitely a discussion we had at the last budget round, and at that time, of course, the bridge was out. I talked to Jeff Peterson on that last week. We're in a role right now of monitoring to see what the ultimate impact is. We don't yet know. We have some suspicions, but we want to bring that back so that we can reprioritize if necessary.
Okay.
You know.
Well, I would just encourage any residents or school parents or teachers in that area to reach out if you feel strongly one way or another about it, because at this point, I'm not sure it's going to be a priority for us. But speaking of 43rd Street, a different school, Jeff has been helpful on this issue, and just wanted to get an update. On Plum Street and 43rd, there's that area where people, it's kind of like a makeshift parking lot, and I continue to get complaints from residents, I think in the Foothills subdivision. Chief Hooper, a couple years ago when this first came up, I think had put up some kind of barriers so that people wouldn't park there. People are parking there again. I continue to get complaints. What do you think we should be doing? Do we need to speak with school administration? Do we need to put temporary barriers up there again? Thoughts?
We kicked this around last week internally, and we don't really know what to expect as far as what the balance and the mix is of people that favor being able to do parking in what I would call an unregulated manner. I know from time to time we get complaints on it. We don't have any plan at the city as far as CIP projects or anything to build other people's infrastructure, which is essentially what this would be doing. I believe the property is owned by the school, so they're parking on their own property. It's not an issue of trespass. I guess what I would suggest is if we do that, be ready for some phone calls and some sort of excited interaction potentially between both agencies to work through it. Or they might just simply say, look, we're going to budget for it next year, we'll fix it. I think anywhere in the middle is probably fair game.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in creating a parking lot for them. Are they not in the right of way when they're parking though in that space?
I don't know.
That's a bigger issue.
I know there is a right of way there, but I don't know if they're parking in it as a practice. Or
I'm
going
having
beyond
a
it.
horrible time trying to figure out where we're even talking about. Is this Plum Creek?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Well, I'll get back to that resident and I guess encourage him to lobby others who, maybe at the school or whatever, if there's nothing we can do about it. But been receiving complaints on that for about 2 years now, so that could escalate. Last thing I had, and I know this is going to seem random, but I didn't know a better time to bring it up. So over the years, I've gotten a lot of feedback on our requirements for engineered stamped drawings for various purposes. And I got another one the other day from a well-known developer who's telling me that in this particular project, it's a little bit maybe unnecessary. I don't know enough about engineering to know at what point those stamp drawings are necessary and at what point they're not. But I didn't start receiving complaints until a couple years ago, so I don't know if something has shifted in our policy or something has shifted in our code. But this particular project, it's adding like $5,000 to $7,000 before the project can even be done. The person I was speaking with, I know that he can make that work. My larger concern are people who aren't as aware of, advocacy channels. They don't know people they can call on the council, and they're just not going to do the project. So I wonder what we're leaving on the table in the form of development if these barriers are coming up that may be necessary. I'm not saying they're unnecessary. I don't know enough. But could we have some kind of review of what type of projects require those stamp drawings? If it's like a restaurant, of course you need a stamp drawing. If it's a hospital,
I know that one of the issues we've run into is, I've shared conversation on it even before Izzy arrived, was the fact that single-family residents weren't required at that time, I think, based on my understanding, to submit engineered drawings. And it wasn't a matter of, a 1,200 square foot house on a slab. These were complex design systems on the homes where you have manufactured truss joist configurations. You've got complex foundation systems going in. Things that really, based on my experience in other jurisdictions, even ones quite smaller and more rural than this one, do have that requirement. So we now, I think, are headed that route, and it's pretty typical of communities to require that. There are some areas where I think we might be a little swimming pools. For some reason, I think a swimming pool should be pretty simple. Electrical bonding and a fence, self-closing gate, boom, be done. But I think we do potentially require more engineering than that on a pool. So there are some areas where we probably could have a discussion and simplify some things for some subcontractors. But as far as if it's single family plan sets, it's pretty typical that, pretty typical that communities would do that.
Just want to inform the council, the Building Trades Board and I are working on putting together a construction submittal guideline. One of the things that we discussed even last week with the local architects and engineers is, when do we require engineer plans? And we're going to be putting all of that in writing. That way we all are on the same page, and it'll be in writing for everyone to know at what point we would need engineer plans. Even for a house. And then one of the things we're looking at is 12,000 square feet or something to that effect. But once again, conversation is in play right now regarding putting something together regarding at what point that's required. But
oh, that's perfect.
So,
yeah, my recommendation would be for the Building Trades Board to, exactly what you said, put that together and help us and the public understand, but also take a look at not just what we're requiring them on, but do we need to be requiring them?
That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. And when do you think that process will be wrapped up?
We're meeting at the end of September.
Okay.
The 4th Tuesday of September. So in the next meeting for further discussion, I got a draft for them to look at, and we could comment on that, but it's still going to be an ongoing thing. It won't probably be until maybe early next year when we'll have something concrete to post on our website and start giving out to contractors.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're
That's
Thank you,
very
Izzy.
happy to
Thanks
hear
for bailing
that.
me out as always.
That's all I had. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, well, I have one thing. Mr. Control, where are we at with the Salt Mine Road over there at the culverts?
Okay. It's a private road, although we own the culverts underneath it. Culverts have failed. Jeff Peterson and I crawled through them, checked them out, there's no question. But they are pretty specific as to where they are failing. Imagine a roadway or a roadbed where you've got salt being taken across there, and over the period of years, the salt migrating off the edge of the pavement, percolating to the ground. Any culvert areas extending beyond the pavement protection area being subject to that erosion factor underneath, and that's what we're seeing in the culverts. 2 areas of the culverts have collapsed already, but they are on the outward perimeter areas. Problem is, when they stage for incoming salt, they have had a historic practice of parking the semis unloaded in that same area right over the culverts, and then outbound trucks that are loaded, 80,000 plus, coming out, traveling across that exact same area. So an empty truck sitting there is not a huge weight concern because of the wheel loading, but the problem is spatially they put themselves so far to the shoulder that even a lawn tractor could fall through this culvert at that point because it's just so compromised on that outer shoulder. So what our pitch to them was, and Jeff wasn't especially happy with me when we made this pitch because it needs to be replaced, and there's no question about it. Jeff is right. But we came up with a modified solution to where we would narrow and restrict the lane to a single lane based on the center line of the road where we think that we have good solid support of the existing culverts for a little while, and that they would have to limit their practices as far as stacking and staging trucks on their inbound and outbound. We also in those discussions suggested to them that, look, we know about the hazard, we're doing best efforts to get this replaced. We want you to acknowledge that this is a problem and to take special precautions and not taking 150,000 plus loads across because you could do that as a private road. We don't want that to be in play. because that would impose some liability to the city. There's a review national group that reviews this facility, I guess annually. They come through and give recommendations. I guess it has some level of degree of impact on how they can be underwritten and insured. They came and did their review. They're not completely satisfied with the city's offering and have suggested in the meantime that they continue, Hutch Salt, continue to use their alternate access point, which is not ideal, but it's working. And in the balance of time that the city continue, just like we were, going forward with plans to replace the culverts. This culvert area is tricky because there's rail that bisects it. There's a roadway, of course, and if we do a conventional replacement, we're going to do a complete open excavation, which is what I'm more accustomed to doing. And dollar-wise, it's probably better until you get into rail reconstruction, which is what we would be facing. So Jeff Peterson is looking into alternate construction methods, and there is one that is a lining system, and it is structural. It is a concrete grouted reinforced system. And if we do that and get staged up for construction, we can't do it during the wet season because weather will definitely impact this project. That'll be set up to where we can do it without interruption to Hutch Salt or their rail line. And as of right now, I think everyone's on the same page. They're reluctant to sign an agreement with the city allowing it to be modified and open temporarily. That's fine. I wasn't happy about it anyway. I just knew that they needed it. So now they're going to continue, I think, using their alternate access points, and we're going to continue to make plans to replace it. Jeff Peterson put together a time frame for us. I don't have it in front of me because my computer crashed 3 days ago, and I'm still on a big chief tablet and a pencil. But I will get that out to you all, and it kind of gives a probable estimate as to the time frame.
And what I'm seeing on the email you gave us, there, that MSA company that does that for them, tell them they wanted to know the timeline in which we was going to get, and we're going with the liners, right? Is that what we're looking at now?
As of right now, that's what our plan is, unless we receive bids back and they're cost prohibitive. We know there'll be more than conventional construction, but how much more we don't yet know.
So on that draft that I seen that you sent, all the MSA wants a timeline. So he's got a timeline now, right?
It'll be a probable timeline, but it certainly won't be a guaranteed timeline.
Okay, they'll have some kind of timeline for them, right?
Conditional to weather, yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Is that
Thank you,
alternative road built to a standard that can withstand those trucks for that long of, because we're talking about months, right?
Absolutely. In fact, it's probably, I don't know that they have any culvert structures. Based on my memory of driving it several weeks ago, I don't think there are any culvert structures that were as sketchy as the ones
Are
we're
they coming
talking
off of
about.
Avenue G?
Yes,
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yes,
how
they've got
on
to go
earth,
south on the G then.
that's correct.
yeah, how do we have a private road but a city culvert?
It happens more frequently, I'd like to admit, even at other cities. You get
Okay.
the private drainage easements and the
That was
infrastructure.
during the industrial district era.
Yeah.
How that
Okay,
happened.
okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
seen that before.
Is that is that their rail, or is that BNSF, or is that the city's?
My understanding, it's Hutch Salt's rail.
It is Hutch Salt Rail,
Yeah.
because there's multiple rail lines there.
Yeah.
In
Believe
that
that's
configuration.
theirs.
Yeah, it's their rail.
Believe so.
Okay.
Well, they've been a big, important part of our community
Oh,
for a
yeah.
very long
Oh, yeah.
time, and I think anything we can do to assure them that we're gonna try to make their lives easier and
Yeah.
support them would be great.
And as soon as possible, if we could, you know.
Well, to be candid, this was the whole reason we tried to offer this modified approach to getting them open. I mean, we knew that they had a need. I don't think we were cavalier in our response to them. We were coming up with all sorts of scenarios and still trying to do that. This has been estimated, I think, by Jeff, from what he told me, it could be upwards of $800,000 to take this on.
Take this on.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
not cheap.
non-programmed. It was not something we had in a CIP. So this is on the fly, and it's going to be upwards of close to $1 million. So I mean, we're going to try to be smart as to how we do it, so we can find some cost savings. But it's not something we're ignoring. That's for sure.
Great.
Thank you. Oh, it's still me. I think that's all I have. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Last week provided some internal reporting, or perhaps it was Saturday. I think it may have been Saturday. Some of those items are not privileged, but they are sensitive items. Certainly ready to stand by and answer any questions you might have about some of those, whether today or privately. Property maintenance, we did discuss that briefly, that we are receiving an influx, not a major trend, but I think we already covered that. Some people are complaining that we're not hitting the right target areas. We should be more proactive in the main corridors, all the way down to weeds in the curb line, requiring private property owners to take care of their sidewalk areas, things of that nature. You've all heard it before. It's something that we deal with, and we do attempt to manage that on a weekly basis. We just discussed Mine Road, Hutch Salt, thank you, Mayor. And also, of course, annually, the resources that the city commits to the state fair, we're seeing that transition of us pushing resources that direction. So our response in some of our other areas will be impacted during some of that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
How long do you think we'll need? Okay, so like 12:20 should be sufficient, you think?
30 minutes, Tom? Yeah, I'm here in 30.
Okay. I move we recess into executive session pursuant to the employer-employee negotiations exception KSA 75-4319B3 in order to discuss issues related to 2022 contract negotiations with the city's bargaining units. The open meeting to resume in the city council chambers at 12:20 p.m.
Second.
Iris De Carvalho,
Yes.
Daveline,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Steve, don't you know that